You're listening to Never Heard of It, a Night Shift Radio production. I kind of want a poof. I don't know if that...
like an ottoman?
I mean, maybe like a decorative ottoman.
Like a decorative footstool? Decorative poof? I guess I don't know what a poof is.
I didn't know. I'll be honest, I didn't know either. And I saw in the subtitles like how they were spelling the word poof, and I was like, oh, like they're capitalizing it. That's weird. I was like, maybe that's just like what they call it. But then I was like, oh, that's like a thing. Like,
it is a real thing.
Yeah. I was not familiar. I guess I didn't wander around places like Pier 1 enough to know what a poof is.
Yeah, it's not something that I would ever want in my home, in the real world or in the context of this film. Either one.
Right. Yeah.
Except perhaps the first result that comes up for me when I Google search poof. The first shopping result is from Wayfair, and it's a poof designed to look like a buffalo.
Okay. I mean, maybe then in that case, what do I get? I get, oh yeah, see, I just get like ottomans. Like that's what I get when I...
See, I get some of those same results, but I also
got
get
the buffalo one. There's
the lovable bear footstool is one of the options I get.
Oh, see, that's nice. I like that. Yeah, no, mine are more traditional poofs. I do see the buffalo one.
A leather whale.
I like your Google search better.
I mean, I guess I've trained my algorithm well.
Yeah, you have.
To know what kind of weird shit to show me.
I like this one. This one is for kids, and it's like globes, and that one's pretty cool. I dig that. This is a preggy poof. The world of like decorative furniture is pretty wild. Like there's
yeah.
I recently was gifted a gift certificate to the At Home store.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with the At Home store.
Yeah.
And so I actually took a trip to the At Home store because their website is very vague, and it's very like, look at our website. You should go to the store instead, though, because it's like, like they want you in the store instead. So I went to the store, and I was just kind of like wandering around the store, just trying to figure out like, oh, cool. What is it that I would want if I were to, to buy something from this place? And the answer is nothing. Really. No. Yeah. Not really much. At Home is cool. It's a really great store. It is really fun. It is really cool, but not my aesthetic. Like there was a lot of stuff that I'm like, you have at least 6 aisles and these stores are huge, and they have at least 6 aisles worth of things where I was like, this serves no purpose in a home.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a thing you use. It's not even a thing like you break out at a party or something where you're like, well, I might use this in the event of this. Like, there are just things that you would buy there that just have the sole purpose of just existing in a house.
Yeah.
I guess I'm more minimalistic than that. I say, as you look at, the background of my, of my office, but like, my office is decorated for YouTube people to look at and look cool. Like,
you have decor, you have art and things like that.
Yeah.
That's like, live your life how you want to live. The Never Heard of It podcast is not here to shame you for how you decorate your house, but I also don't understand the idea of having things just for the sake of having them. And like every now and then things like that sneak into my home, and I'm like, why is this here?
Was this poof always here?
Was this poof always here?
Yeah.
When did we get a poof? You know what? We would actually use a poof. I used to have a big, well, technically it was Ellen's grandfather's, but it got passed down to her and then became mine. Big, comfy leather armchair, like the perfect old man chair. Like you
Yeah.
could see where like he had worn in the leather from like where he sat in it every day. Like it was just the perfect chair.
Yeah.
And I had just a cheap old ottoman, like storage ottoman, the kind that like opened up and you could put stuff in, just like from Target that I bought a long time ago for my house. And the two of those things together, perfect. Perfect. Just like the best for lounging in.
Yeah.
I no longer have either. And
Oh, that's my daughter
makes me sad.
has a storage ottoman thing. She actually uses it as a step stool in her room to get up to like another section. But in it, she you can lift up the lid and there's space, and she puts toys and stuff in it, and it's pretty cool. I dig that. I understand that. But I don't know, man. But you know what? We're not here to talk about decor. Okay, well, kind of. We are here. We're a little bit here to talk about decor. But we are in fact here to talk about the movie Save Yourselves. And that being said, hello and welcome to the Never Heard of It podcast. I'm your host, Michael Fight.
And I, Caleb, am a modern man.
So at the very beginning of this movie, I was like, ugh, I hate people like Jack. And then like halfway through the movie, I was like, oh fuck, I am Jack. Oh
Yeah.
fuck. I was like, oh my god, I am Jack.
Yeah.
It was very upsetting.
Ellen and I saw just a little too much of ourselves in Sue and Jack.
Yeah.
Like uncomfortably so.
Yeah. No, there was definitely parts of this movie where I was like, fucking called out. What the fuck, dude? It was good, but not in a bad way. Really not in a bad way. It was just like that like personality that got called out, and I was like, oh wow, like
yeah,
shit, like that's what it was like. It was yeah. So we're talking about Save Yourselves. This was written by Alex Houston Fisher and Eleanor Wilson. So Alex is a director and a writer. So he did this. He did a short called Spell. He did a thing called For Maya. And he did another thing called Snowy Bing Bongs Across the North Star Combat Zone.
What?
Because of course you did. It's also a short. It's a fun little comedy short. And then Eleanor did a film called Possum. She did one called Everything All at Once, which actually looks really good.
Oh, wait. I've heard of this. What is this?
Yeah.
I need to look this up. Everything All at Once.
But it essentially looks like they both have done just a whole bunch of shorts and ended up getting this film, making it. It's a small budget film, and it ended up getting to Sundance, which is pretty awesome. But the estimation of the budget, I would say their budget was probably under 500,000. Well, no, maybe probably $1 million or $2 million. This is probably a couple of $1 million movie, just based on who was in it.
Yeah, I know that feels right.
Yeah,
it's obviously not a huge budget, but it's very well done, and it's thoughtfully cast, and like there is some degree of special effects they're not cheesy, like they're done really well.
Yeah, that's why I think like 2 million is probably right, just based on like the quality of the camera, because like like I know that the quality of film that they did, like audio wise, it sounds fucking great.
Yeah.
Video wise, like the quality of it is fantastic. They definitely use like good cameras and stuff like that. Like that's at least several $100,000 worth of equipment right there. So that's how I know like what their budget had to have been way above that, because I mean like Sunita Mani, who is the main character, like I would say she's known enough where like she got a decent payout for this film, because like I mean, she's not famous as she should be. She should be more famous than she is. But she's getting there. But like I think she's enough of a name that they probably had to pay a little bit of money for her. That's my opinion. Yeah. At least I hope they did.
Yeah, there's a story behind why I selected this. First of all, April of 2021 is another alien invasion month, so it's Alien Invasion April here on Never Heard of It podcast, and we love a good alien film. This is one of the rare times, because usually we pick a movie and either neither of us have seen it or you have and I have not. And so I'm, either way, usually going in blind. This is one of the rare times where I've seen the movie and you hadn't, which was very exciting for me. This came out in October of last year, October of 2020. And I remember it was I think it was literally the week that I had made that commitment that I wanted to try to watch a non-podcast related movie once a week, which I haven't fully kept up with, full disclosure, but I made that decision. And then I was working one morning and I saw a trailer. When I say I was working, I was working, but I was browsing the internet, and I saw a trailer for this movie. It had just released, literally like that week. So I think that was October 4th was its release date. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna rent this movie like tonight. Like, we're gonna watch this. It was like a Thursday night. And so, like, we finished up work, and I told Ellen what our plans were that evening, and she was like, "Okay, I guess." And so we watched this movie, and we just both absolutely fucking loved it. It also, coincidentally, was just before, like, if we watched it on opening week, it would have been like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before we took our own week-long vacation out to a cabin in remote Wisconsin. To get away from it all after 6 or 7 months, whatever, of being at home, and, just to go and like still sequester ourselves in 4 walls, but in a different set of walls, for my birthday. And so wasn't necessarily the best movie to watch immediately before going to a remote location, but very, very happy. I recognized Sunita Mani. So she's been in a bunch of stuff. She's been in Mr. Robot. She's been in Glow. She's been in a bunch of movies and shorts and stuff like that. Both she and John Reynolds have been on the Chris Gethard show, which if you listen to our other podcasts, Left of the Dial, we recently had Mikey Erg, who was part of Chris Gethard's crew, as well as Kiri and Heidi from Early Riser, who both used to book music for it. So some associations there. That's pretty cool. Like, kind of unintentionally linking it back to the other show. But yeah, so she's been in quite a bit. I recognized her from the Progressive commercials.
Yeah, so I recognized her from Glow because I was a huge fan of Glow. But so vice versa, like the other way around, is I watched Glow like as soon as it came out, and then I saw her in the Progressive commercials. So I was like, hey. But so fun fact about Sunita, she actually is like a break dancer, like a dancer.
Neat.
And she would do she was actually in the music video for Turn Down for What. Like that's where like she got her big start. And that's she funny. Was part of the Cocoon Central Dance team. But she's also, as you mentioned, like Mr. Robot and Glow and other things. She was in Broad City. She was in the show Search Party, which I hear is really great, and she did have a few lines in The Good Place as well.
Yeah, I think both of these main actors were in Search Party.
Yep. John Reynolds was in Search Party for I think that he's like one of the main people. I think I haven't watched that show, so I can't say so.
It looks
but
good.
He is also one of the cops in Stranger Things.
Yes.
Yeah, he is Officer Calhoun, I think, or Callahan, I mean.
Yeah. So both of these actors have like kind of been building up a decent little resume for themselves, but kind of like flying under the radar, which made them, I think, so perfect for this, because they're enough star power to drive the movie, but like quote unquote unknown enough to like feel really authentic in these characters, and that balance was so great.
It kind of felt the equivalent of it to like Scare Me, where like Aya Cash, was known, like she was starting to become more known because of The Boys, like Josh Rubin, we had known from things, and then Chris Redd from SNL, like when he makes his appearance in it, you were like, like you just know them enough that like it still feels like, and this is like kind of a shitty thing to say, but like they had just enough notoriety that you were like, oh yeah, that person, but not enough where you're like, yeah, it's fucking, Tom Cruise, in
Yeah,
another
exactly.
blockbuster movie. Like it was just enough where you could feel like you could relate to the character, but not too much where you were like, well, I know it's just this actor playing this person. It was great.
Well, and I love that you bring up Scare Me because that released right around the same time. And
Yeah.
very similar concept in that it was a horror adjacent, although not full on horror film, with a very small cast in a very like isolated environment. And it was very heavily based on the dialogue and the storytelling and the chemistry between the actors.
Yeah.
And it's no coincidence that these were my top 2 movies of last year, hands down.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I 100% agree. So I have only watched this movie for the first time literally 2 hours ago. But had I watched this last year, 100% top 5 of
Hmm.
films last year. And yeah, same sort of premise, going to the upstate cabin, and like and although they both have different outcomes, uh yeah, 100%. Like it feels the same, and I fucking love it. I love movies like this. It was
Yes.
just really fucking good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So let's dive into it. So again, the movie we're talking about is Save Yourselves, which is currently available streaming on Hulu in America.
Which I was very
Um,
excited to hear about because like I dropped the cash to rent this when it first came out and I don't regret that one bit, but I also appreciate now that it's more widely available because I want people to watch this movie.
Agreed. I hope that we can. I hope that this pushes it up a little bit. And full disclosure, we did reach out to Sunita Mani's management team to see if to invite her on the podcast, as well as John Reynolds, and neither returned our calls. So
Aw,
there's that. But I did in fact reach out to both of them, hoping they would be on the show. So maybe next time.
that would have been
Um,
fun. You know what? Either one of them welcome anytime, even if it's not about one of their movies or if it is.
Yeah, heck yeah, of course, absolutely, 100%, 100%. So the story starts out. The great thing about this story, and I see, we see this in the IMDb like facts and stuff like that. And the great thing about this story is that it's another one of those like the alien invasion isn't really what it's about.
Hmm.
It's about, so like the movie is about this couple, and they're going through that same sort of thing that we all go through and even probably currently go through. And the idea is that like, oh fuck, I'm X age, and like what am I doing?
Yeah.
Jack, the main character, John, Jack makes the comment of like, I don't know how to be a man. Like, my dad was really good at fishing and he knows about
Hmm.
plumbing, and my brothers picked that up, but I had no interest in that. And then he was like, and of course his girlfriend Sue is like, oh, but you have all these other skills. And he's like, I don't have any other skills either. Like he was like, I avoided all those manly things because it was this masculinity that I just didn't care for, and I didn't like the idea of that gender conformity, but I didn't develop any other skills either. Which I mean, whether we don't necessarily know if that's true or not, but that's a thing. I felt that so much because
Yeah.
I grew up around all women, but I grew up around women who were people who fished and camped and fixed things. Like my other mother was that sort of person. Like she repaired vending machines like for a job for as long as I can remember. But
Nice.
like she was the one who took me camping and like fishing, and she loved to fish, and she was like, you don't need that bullshit. Here's a can of beans, like, fend off yourself. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. And then as I started getting older, I was like, I have no interest in this whatsoever. But like, I still
No.
went because, it's like my mom. I still go with, if my mom asked me to go on vacation with her, I'm going to go,
Yeah.
whatever. But like, and then I thought about it and I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I am Jack. I am Jack's lack of skills.
Like when he's like, yeah, I can cook, but like that's about it. I'm like, oh, that's me too.
Right.
Like he we get a sense that he's probably like a web designer or something like that, which is not a skill that I have, but it still like adjacent to the world
I
that I
mean,
working in IT. and
I do want to
technical
interject that
related.
Caleb built the Night Shift Radio website, nightshiftradio.com. So sure, maybe not a traditional web designer in sense, but you still built a great website.
Well, thank you. That was primarily Squarespace and alcohol. Um, where was it? But yeah, so like, in the event of a complete like world-ending apocalyptic event that brings down like the global economy and the internet technology and whatnot, I'm pretty good at throwing together food from nothing, but like that's my skill that gets me inside the camp walls.
Right. Where they're at, you're at gunpoint and like slingshot point, and you're like, I kind of know how to cook. So they're like, all right, let him in.
Like
That's
Ellen can knit and sew and make things with her hands very, very easily, and has like some basic survival skills, and learned, picked up some more like man skills, quote unquote, from her dad growing up. Like, I don't fucking care about any of that stuff.
Right. I know we've
if it's
had
not
this
a computer, I
conversation.
don't know how to make it go.
Right. I know we've had this conversation before about like, would we last during a zombie apocalypse and that kind of stuff, and I would just be like, I can help you with your brand image. I don't know. Oh, fuck. Okay. I'll just stay out here, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Here's my supplies. I'll just go fucking die. I help with PR. Yeah. But so we learn about Sue and Jack, who are a couple. They live in Brooklyn, and they do very Brooklyn things.
Brooklyn
So
hipsters.
they are Brooklyn
God
hipsters
damn.
through and through. And as much as I was like, fucking shut up, like they would be my friends, and that's like I'm not even gonna pretend like I wouldn't be having couples dinner with them on a Friday or something. Like it's fine. They're cool. But anyway, so we learned that, as we mentioned, Jack is some sort of web designer. Sue at some point did something. She maybe was someone's personal assistant.
Yeah, she's like a PA or an EA or something like that. She like, we see her like trying to book flights and like plan a trip for her boss. So either she's directly an assistant or she has another job and has just been saddled with a bunch of other bullshit responsibilities that probably weren't in the scope.
Weird. That never happens at all.
No, not at all.
No, especially in your 30s. Yeah. And so the movie starts off with them just kind of like, I mean, I would assume for probably most of our listeners, you're going to watch this movie, and I really hope you watch this movie, but you're going to watch this movie and be like, oh my God, and turn to your significant other and be like, that's us. Like, we literally we have done that. We have had that night at least 3 times this week.
She picks up her computer and opens it and it's like, oh no. This is bad. And he's like, what is it? Is it North Korea? Like, immediately goes to like worst case disaster scenario. And she's like, my fucking tabs. And I'm like, oh God.
Like, oh no.
Oh, you gotta close your tabs. You can't rely on that shit. And also, like, do you not know how to find your, figure it out. Just fucking figure it out. Like, it's not my problem.
Right. You're like, I'm not IT on this. Yeah. Oh, and it's great. And like the reason is great. She was like, what happened to all my tabs? Like, did you close all my tabs? And she turns to Jack, and Jack was like, well, I mean, your computer was closer. And she was like, what did you even need? You looked up how to make bread? What the fuck?
Let's give some props to Jack for being the hipster that was making sourdough before the pandemic.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would say the assumption is this movie was probably filmed in 2019. If it got a release in 2020, because I think it hit Sundance in the January before that. So it probably hit Sundance January of 2020. So it was probably made in 2019.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So yeah, good for Jack, man. He was one step ahead of the curve. I don't know, man. I just really love this movie.
I see so many, like, not only do I see my own self and my own relationship reflected in this movie, I see so many people that I know reflected in it
No, it's true.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and of course, like we learned that Sunita is, or her name is Serena in the movie.
Yeah,
Sue, she
Serena.
goes by
Yep.
Sue. That Sue is very much like she's very focused on work, and she like places a high level of importance on that. Jack is a little bit less like intense about work. He's a little bit more just kind of like just live life, and he's a bad listener. He's kind of flippant, like he doesn't really pay that much attention, and when like she gets mad at him, he like isn't really able to focus on why. And at one point he just like he realized like, okay, I'm kind of making an ass out of myself. So it's like, I love you. She's like, that's nice, did you mean to say I'm sorry?
Yeah, I love that.
Which is great. He's like, yeah, you know what, that I'm sorry. She's like, what are you sorry for? The thing that you want me to to apologize for.
Which
As
it was so cute.
yes, it's adorable. And they make up. It's not like this big, like, earth-shattering fight, and it doesn't end their relationship. It's just, it's a normal human everyday relationship fight. And then they go out with their friends, who like there's a couple of their guy friends are getting married. They're gonna have this destination wedding in Mexico and fly in a fucking 12-piece New Orleans jazz band, which
But low carbon footprint, right?
yeah, low carbon footprint, but we're gonna bring in a fucking jazz band anyway. They have this whole big night on the town in New York, and they run into Zach's friend Raph, who used to be an investment banker for like a decade, and it was soul sucking, and he just quit. He just had to quit. He was building up that rage, and I'm like, you know what? I feel that too.
I've been there, man.
And now he makes 3D printed surfboards out of algae.
Which is actually pretty fucking dope. I don't surf, and like I've only ever like kind of half tried it once, but like he said that and I was like, dude, that's actually pretty fucking cool. Like that's actually such a cool, like, like that's a really cool idea. I dig it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't surf, and I wouldn't, because that involves going in water, which is the thing I don't do. But
Mm-hmm.
the 3D printed surfboards out of algae is dope.
Mm-hmm.
I can very much get into that.
Yeah, I totally get into that.
He's like, I've been helping to fix up it was like his uncle or grandfather's cabin upstate, which upstate for people in the city is like throw a rock as far as you can outside the city limits and you're upstate. Fuck
yeah,
you.
he's like they said it's a Pine Bush or something
Pine
like
Bush.
that, which is like 50 minutes north of like it's not like I'm not upstate, I'm central New York, but I am like still way like upstate is even higher up than they think.
Yeah. Pine Bush apparently used to be known as like the UFO capital of the US, because there used to be a lot of UFO sightings reported in the area. So I love that that's where they set this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean it's barely outside the city. Like
Yeah.
it's still down in the pointy section of the state.
Yeah. And so they go to this party, and they're talking to this guy, and he's just talking about like, oh yeah, well, you got to find yourself, and this is who I am, man, like I figured it out. And he's like, oh Jack, I was thinking of you and I got you this, and it's a fucking rock, and so he hands him,
excuse me, it's a crystal.
Oh, it's a crystal. This is a crystal. And so like as they're leaving their party, they have this moment of like we should do, like they're they're drunk, but they're inspired, and they're like, we should be better, like we should do something. And he, this guy, Ben, I think his name is, he offers up the cabin,
right.
like you're right, yeah. And he was like, you can come, hey, I'm fixing it up, but like it always needs people, you're welcome to come stay in it. And they're like, And so, as they're walking home, they're like, no, we should totally like be better. Like we need to center ourselves and like, disconnect and try to figure shit out. And so the next day they decide to do that. and they're getting their works together, and it's going to be a spontaneous thing. They're like, we're leaving tomorrow, like this is it. So Jack is on the phone with his work, letting them know like, hey, I have a few clients that may need a little minor maintenance, and he's just basically prepping for the week. Sue texts her boss and was like, hey, can I get this week off? To which her boss just straight up fires her immediately, which that's shitty. And
but you know what? That's the catalyst that she needs. She's like,
right,
we need this. We have to do this now.
Yeah, and she brings it up later, like, I lost my job for this week, like, so we have to do it right. Yeah.
Rafe, by the way, played by Ben Sinclair, who seems to have mostly been in weed-related things, specifically both incarnations of the show High Maintenance. But he was in an episode of 30 Rock as Brooklyn Idiot, which is great. But if no one else, this guy at least is our connection to the police procedurals. He was in SVU.
Hey, there you go. We got it. We got him, guys. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, so now's their moment. They figure it out, and the whole idea of going there is to disconnect from the internet. No phones, no computers, no internet, just go there, be together, be present, discover themselves to a degree, and just really like, kind of reconnect. And one of the things that I really liked about this movie that I feel like is very common in these type of things is that there's always like the we're just bickering at each other the whole time and blah 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 blah, and then we have that moment of like, no, I really love you. Like, they just have a good relationship the entire movie, and it's never their relationship never becomes a plot point to the sense of like, blah blah blah. Well, I don't like when you do this, or I don't like when you did. Like, it never becomes this like thing where they have to like hash it out. It's just they just are together, the movie, and it exists, and I love that.
Yeah.
It's way more realistic feeling.
There's never a blow up. There's not like everything falls apart and they've got to pick it up, and like you're left wondering like, do they really patch it up, or like do they go their separate way? No, like again, it's just very normal, like human, reasonably healthy relationship. Like they work well together, even like because of or despite their flaws, however you want to look at it.
Right. So they get to the cabin, and they start their process of the healing. And before we get into what is about to go down, because shit's about to go down.
It's about to go down.
Let's go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we will actually dive into the rest of the story of Save Yourselves. Before we go, thanks a lot for subscribing. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We super appreciate that, and share this video. We would appreciate that. And of course, if you're listening on your podcast player of choice, don't forget to subscribe there. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and leaving a rating and review. That would be super helpful. Or of course, sharing with a friend. We would greatly appreciate that. And of course, hit us up on Twitter at any time. We're on Twitter at the Nahoit Podcast. You can see it. It'll be down below at some point during this video, and also linked down below in our show notes. Tweet at us. Let us know movies you think we should watch. We're doing a month of Alien Invasion, but we will, gladly watch whatever you think is cool in May, and start adding on some cool films.
Yeah.
So that being said, we're going to jump to a break, and we will be right back.
Looking for something heroic in your life? Go check out our friends at the Superpod HeroCast. They're guys with beers talking about movies with capes. Every episode goes in depth with a different superhero movie. A classic of modern cinema? A certified stinker? It doesn't matter. If it's a superhero movie, they're going to talk about it. Start with a little bit of comedy, add in some film analysis, and finish it off with a heaping dose of geekery. You've got the Superpod HeroCast. It doesn't matter if you're a casual fan or a 20th level nerd. Download their latest episode, grab a beverage, and enjoy the fun. The Superpod HeroCast. Be heroic.
Set Condition 1 is Night Shift Radio's Battlestar Galactica fancast. Each week, Battlestar veterans Caleb and Kitsy revisit, and newcomer to the show, Andrea, watches for the first time the 2004 sci-fi series Battlestar Galactica. They've just entered their third season, which means you've got 2 full seasons of sci-fi gold to binge if you want to watch along with them. Whether you're the commander of a soon-to-be decommissioned battleship, or were recently promoted to president of the 12 colonies. Join Caleb, Kitsy, and Andrea as they make their way through the Battlestar Galactica universe one episode at a time. Watch Battlestar Galactica free on Peacock and find Set Condition 1 at Set Condition 1 throughout the podcast.com or wherever you get podcasts. Hello and welcome back. All right.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. So, we have gotten them to the cabin. They're starting their journey, and we get a few instances of them, trying to meditate. And we learn is that Sue is the type of person that what she did before they left was she internet searched a whole bunch of things and basically just wrote them down, like lists of how to relax, lists of how to connect. And, he even says like, yeah, but the whole idea was to disconnect from the internet, and you just Google searched how to do it and wrote it down. He's like, "Why did you write down the whole list?" She was like, "Yeah, I mean,
you brought the internet with you."
She's like, "Well, the printer wasn't working, but yeah, so I wrote it all down."
Like, I kind of, I see both of their points on this. Like,
totally, I get it.
He's right that like the whole thing was just like to disconnect and just to kind of like just to be. But she also wanted to feel like she was prepared and could like really utilize the time. And I think honestly, the reason that I understand this dynamic so well is because that's exactly how our trips go in this house, where I'm like, just fuck it, we're going to wing it. Like, we'll do whatever feels right in the moment. And Ellen has a list, and like, not like, you know what? Credit to her. She's gotten significantly, I'm not going to say better because that's objective. Subjective, that's subjective. But relative to me, she's gotten less stringent in like her requirements for like itineraries and whatnot. The longer that she's known me, I've had that effect, and conversely, I've also become a little bit less fuck it, whatever. So we're like, if there is a plan, I'll go with it.
Yeah, that's the relationship compromise. That's how things work. Everybody meets in the middle somewhere. That's
why this dynamic makes sense to me. Like I saw her like writing down the things that she wanted to do on the trip. I'm like, yep. And I saw him like, what are you doing? We're gonna get in the kayak. It's gonna be you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna jump in the water. Like, I wouldn't do that, but like, I understand.
We understand the rest. Yeah. No, completely. And so we get this moment of where they have this, I mean, it's a slight argument. I mean, it's a very slight argument. They're in the shower and, she gets angry. And, so she was like, fine, fuck it. So she goes off on her own in the house. I mean, and she sneakily pulls up her phone. Mm-hmm. And she gets to her phone, and all of a sudden she starts getting all of these text messages and voicemails that are like, oh my God, Sue, where are you? Do you know what's going on? Like, she gets a bunch of texts of like, oh shit, I don't know what's happening. And she gets a couple of phone calls from her mother, who basically are like, hey, are you guys still in New York? I heard about, I heard your silly, voicemail. They left a group voicemail basically saying, hey, we're disconnecting for a week. We're going off in this cabin in the woods. We'll be back on June, 9th or whatever it is. So the mom is like, they're saying that these rats in New York, they're not actually rats. And, so Sue's hearing some of the messages coming through, and she's like, what? This is fucking weird. And just then Jack comes in, and so of course she hides the phone because she's like, oh shit, like we're, I don't want him to find out that I broke the rules, I guess. Yeah. And then, they sort of have this moment where that's where he goes to the speech of like, I don't know how to be a man. And, you know, because while they're after this fight, she goes off and grabs her phone and he goes off to like chop wood. And you see him and he just has the axe like in the thing because he can't chop the wood. And that's what kind of like triggers this moment of like, oh shit, I have no skills like as either a man or whatnot. And I mean, you know, obviously if you're a longtime listener of the Never Heard of It podcast, gender conformity is stupid, and we don't agree with anything about masculine or feminine, because that's bullshit. Everything's just human. But I mean, he has that moment of like, oh my god, I didn't even pick up these skills for my dad, and I don't have any other skills to complement it.
Fun tidbit as an aside. Sue's mother, we only hear her voice, we never see her, but the voice is Zenobia Shroff, who she's been in a fair amount of like TV appearances and some movies and whatnot. But most interesting to me is that she is going to be, I believe, the mother in the upcoming Ms. Marvel series. She'll be Muniba Khan, and if I remember from the comics, I think that is Kamala's. It's Kamala Khan, right? Or am I?
Kamala Khan. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm not just confusing with the vice president, right?
It is Khan. Yeah, it is Kamala Khan. Yeah, because she's Kamala. Well, we assume Kamala and then Kamala.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I believe that she is the mother in Ms. Marvel, which will be very interesting.
That's pretty exciting. And actually, so speaking of the mothers, the mother for Jack is voiced by Amy Sedaris, who was in Strangers in Candy. She's, you know, obviously they have a somewhat famous family. Like David Sedaris is, you know, very popular humorist and writer. But Amy Sedaris has been in tons of funny things. She's great.
Quick correction on myself. It is Kamala Khan. It is the same as the vice president's pronunciation.
It is pronounced Kamala.
Yeah.
Oh, noted. So, yeah, I didn't
wanted to make sure I got that right, so I looked it up.
My daughter watches that superhero, the cartoon with Miss Marvel. She watched some of those, but I didn't I didn't remember how they said her name. But that has like Squirrel Girl and like Spider Gwen and stuff like that. It's pretty fucking cool.
Looks great.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. I just don't remember. That was also where like they have America Chavez. They have the Falcon. So have you watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Yes, we are caught up.
Okay, so the kid of the guy they go to visit, he's they have him in that show, young whatever it is.
Young Patriot or something like that.
Yeah, he's young Patriot or something. Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah. But anyway, so at this point, you know, he comes in and he's talking to Sue and he's like, you know, hey, like let's do this. You're right. Let's do this. Let's be honest. And so he says all this thing and he was like, what about you? Is there something you've recently done that you think you should be honest about? And she's like, oh, you know, not that I could think of at the moment, because she's, you know, hiding the fact that she saw her phone. And then she ends up saying, I eat my contacts. And he was like, wait, what the fuck? And she was like, I don't know, like I didn't used to. And then one day I was like, I just wanted to eat them. And then now I can't stop. And he's like, that's pretty serious. We should really address this. She was like, I know, I'm really concerned. I'm very concerned. It kind of scares me. Very funny. But at that moment they're there and they see a Pouffes. They see a Pouffes in the thing, and I don't know if this has happened. Maybe I'm missing up. Maybe this has already happened. But she was like, he was like, "What?" She's like, "What is this Pouffes? Was this always there?" And he was like, "Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's a Pouffes." And that's where they have the funny like
what even is a Pouffes?
What is a Pouffes? Yeah. She was like, "It's like an ottoman." And you know, later then we see the moment where the Pouffes is now gone, and so now we know shit's going down. It's happening. And so no, you're so at this point things start escalating where we have seen a few instances of like people outside the house. We see a guy like coming up to the house and we see him standing there, you know, it's late at night and he's like looking and you're like, oh, this is fucking creepy. And you see he
That's
has a little
Rafe.
bit of blood on him. Oh yeah, Rafe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he falls forward and we see that he's clearly been killed by some form of alien.
There's a poof behind him when he falls over. There's a moment earlier on where like I think it's when they're out on the kayak. We get a quick scene of a guy like running for his life through the woods, and like we hear people screaming in the background. And then like they're in the kayak and they've got their eyes closed and whatnot, and we see the guy like running towards them, and all of a sudden he's like whipped away, and there's like, wow, you can really hear the sounds of nature out here with your eyes closed.
Right.
When they first get to the cabin, they go out on that hike and they're sitting in this overlook point and they hear gunshots and like, oh, it must be hunting season. And then later they hear more gunshots and screams. They're like, it's probably fine.
That was so great.
Like there's all these like real subtle nods that the world is falling apart around them. But I love that like in no way does it directly impact them for like at least half of the film.
So like question it. Yeah. Oh, so like also like the first night that they're there, they're like sitting out looking at the stars and they see a whole bunch of shootings, like, you know, things flying all over the place. And they're like, oh, it's a shooting star. Oh, there's another one. And be like, well, it must be a meteor shower, you know?
It's like, I saw that one. I saw one of these once like in Vermont or something like that. He's like, I was tripping on acid.
Oh, boy.
It was also like, during the day, I think it was the day that they first drove out, we get a quick shot of the sky and like there's a whole bunch of meteors coming through. So we see like that's like it literally starts like as soon as they leave the city, that's when like the invasion starts. So like they just got out in time, literally.
Yeah. So, you know, now that things are starting to get weird, the poof has disappeared. They realize that the poof is gone. And they're starting to see, you know, things happen. So they wake up one morning and they realize that he had this like fermented stuff that he was going to use to bake bread, and he realized that it's gone. And he was like, what the I've been brewing this for 6 months. Like I wouldn't just, you know, use it all or spill it. Like where the fuck did all this go? And, you know, she picks up the bottle and realizes there's a tiny hole in it covered in like goop. And then they look over at the whiskey, and the whiskey, same thing. There's a tiny hole, like the whiskey's all gone. She was like, did we drink all the whiskey? And he was like, no, there's tons left. And they look at the bottle, it's completely empty. And again, there's a tiny hole in it and the goop is around it. And they're like, wait, what the fuck is going on? And so at this point, Sue was like, wait, does whiskey have ethanol in it? And he was like, yeah. And she was like, what about the stuff that you had? And he was like, yeah. She's like, okay, I'm going to tell you something, but you can't be mad. She was like, I checked my phone. He was like, she's like, but seriously, you really need to listen to this. And so she goes to the whole thing and she plays one of the voicemails. And one of the voicemails from her mom is she's like on the phone talking. And she was like, what? They're attracted to the ethanol? What is that, like a drink? And, you know, and she was like, yeah.
I love that, like that little bit of exposition just through like a few sentences in a voicemail that like not even like necessarily coherent, but that tells you like so much that you need to know.
It's just enough. It's just enough. Yeah. Oh, I loved it. And so she was like, I don't know. I ignored it because it was, you know, I just thought it was something my mom saw on Fox. And so I ignored her. So they go through and they start playing the messages, and they realize at this moment that she no longer has cell service. But she's playing all the old voicemails, and we get to hear more, and, you know, and we hear a little more of, you know, a couple of people of calling. Somebody has texted, like one of their friends has texted and been like, oh my God, you know, my boyfriend's dead. I don't know what to do. Like, oh shit, we were supposed to go to Yankee Stadium, but that's been destroyed. You know, the mom was like, they're not rats, they're aliens. Like they're aliens from another planet. They're coming for the ethanol. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm going for safety. And at this point, they're like, what is going on? Like, they have this like very realistic breakdown of like, what do we do? What the fuck do we do? And they get a phone call from Raph. And Raph is like, hey, it's getting weird, man. I'm going to come down and bunker down with you guys. Like, I'm heading up right now to do that. But hey, down in the basement, you know, under a thing is my grandpa's gun. Like, get that and use it to protect yourselves. And they have this very like very great conversation about having a gun in the house and stuff. And I love it because, like, yeah, it's a great conversation, but at the same time, it's like, alien invasion, dude, just take the gun.
It's just like, no, like just having a gun in the house increases the chance that one of us will get shot. And she's like, look, I know the statistics. They just start rattling off statistics about gun safety. All good things to know and be aware of. The fact
Totally.
that these are very true things that you're definitely, especially untrained, more likely to shoot yourself or a loved one than you are an actual target. But again, in the moment, in disaster situation, like, be careful, I guess. Just get it
Right.
anyway.
Right. This is the moment of, like, you do the opposite. You leave the cannoli and take the gun. Like, it's the flip flop this time. And
Worst case scenario, you can throw the gun.
You can throw the gun. We've also learned that it's very effective against supernatural beings.
I would much rather just throw the gun than try to shoot it. I feel like I'd be way more accurate.
It's true. So eventually they pull the gun up, and they're there and they're getting everything ready. They see a Pouffe, and this is where everything kind of starts going wacky. And so, a bunch of stuff happens, and it's, there's just like a lot of, like, let me test fire the gun, shit, here's a Pouffe, like, let's run, like, escape scenarios. And he was, I think it's also funny, he was like, okay, what are our, like, we got to check our provisions, like, what do we have? And they're like, well, we have some lamb chops, we have, some egg and stuff. He's like, damn, would it have killed us to get anything non-perishables?
Like microgreens, some leftover quinoa. Like, it's the most, like, hipster shopping list ever, and also very relatable.
Dude, all of that sounded really good. Like, not everything they listed, I was like, shit, that sounds really tasty. I want to go camping with these guys. Like, I would love to go to this cabin and hang out with these guys.
Let's have a couple's weekend at this cabin together. Jack, you cook.
Right, you cook. We'll bring the whiskey. It'll be fine. And so, they've gotten to their moment, and so eventually it gets to the point where, the Pouffes are there, they're invading, they're like, fuck, we gotta go. So they go to, he's like, first let's go to the car, but then obviously the car has been drained of gas because the Pouffes are there to, drink ethanol or whatever.
Ethanol, yeah.
And so finally they find a truck hidden in like a garage, and they realize that the truck is diesel. Well, they don't realize that. We realize it later. So he's like, oh, there's, this truck, like, it still has gas. Let's go. So they get on the road. They have their gun. They've got their supplies. They bounce out of there, and they're driving down the road, and they see another car coming after us, or like coming at them. And the car stops, and we see that there's a Pouffe. And, one of the driver gets out, and she starts firing at the Pouffe, and the Pouffe shoots out its little, tentacle tongue thing and kills her. The guy gets out of the passenger seat and comes out and, is looking at his presumed wife, and the Pouffe kills that person. And then, it starts heading towards them. And Jack actually had this really smart idea where he brings a bunch of wine, and she was like, why are you bringing this wine? Like, we don't need that. And he was like, no, listen, we throw it, it explodes, they smell the ethanol, and they're distracted. And she was like, actually, that's a really smart idea. And actually, that is a really smart idea.
Yeah.
Like, very clever. And so he does that, and it works. But before the Pouffe leaves, he, like, emits this gas or something, like a smell. And so, they're driving by, and just as they drive by this empty truck, they hear a baby cry. And they were like, and she stops, and she was like, was that a fucking baby? And he was like, no, I mean, maybe it's, not. And then it cries again, and it's clearly a baby. And he's like, it's a fucking baby. It's, oh God. And they're like, well, maybe we didn't hear the baby. Maybe we just leave a note or something. She's like, I don't know. So they go back and forth, and eventually they're like, okay, let's let's go save this baby.
Which, like, you know, these two have talked about, like, maybe in a few years' time when they've gotten their shit a little bit more together, maybe start to think about having children. Like, they're very clearly
Right.
not ready to be parents themselves, and yet here they are in a survival scenario with seemingly no choice but to go and rescue this baby. And the two of them, like, what could possibly go wrong?
Sure.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. So just as they are attempting to get the baby out of the truck, we see in the bed of the truck kind of a blanket unfold, and there is a woman hiding in the back of the truck. She gets up, she sneaks around, grabs one of the guns, points it at them, and they're like, "Whoa, hey, no, what are you doing?" She's like, "I'm gonna take your truck. It's diesel, right?" And they're like, "Oh yeah." And she was like, "I'm gonna take your truck. I'm gonna take your truck." And she like gets in the car, and she was like, "What are you doing? Like, but we have a baby." And she's like, "It's not my baby." And she drives off with everything. And they're like, "What the fuck do we do? Like, what do we do now?"
Like, exactly what they thought about doing but couldn't do. She's like, "Nope, not mine.
Not my
See
kid.
ya."
See ya. Yep. And so, yeah.
So now they're on foot with Pouffes around and a baby, wandering through the woods trying to find safety. And they dig through the baby's belongings that they rescued from the truck to learn that the baby is in fact also named Jack.
Oh, baby Jack. We've got
Baby
two Jacks.
Which was adorable.
It was adorable. I thought that was a cute little coincidental but like emotional touch. I thought that was pretty interesting. So, off they go, and they're trying to, make their way around. And as they start changing the diaper of Jack, who has recently shat himself, they start feeling all weird and loopy. And they're like, I don't like, what is going on? And they're like, oh my God, it poofed us. Like we, Sue, wonderfully quick thinking, she realizes that she saw in the bag 2 epinephrine, basically epipill pens, in there. And so she, just as they're about to pass out, she jabs both her and Jack, adult Jack, with the EpiPens. They pass out for a second. They wake up and they're like, "What the fuck?" And she was like, "Oh, it must have been, this thing." So this is another power or whatever we've learned about these aliens. And they realize Jack's missing. And they're like, "Oh shit!" And he was like, "Well, what do we do?" So like, "Well, we just have to listen." So they hear Jack, and just as they're going to save him, a Pouff shows up, and the Pouff, he's like, "Sue, we gotta, get the weapon, get the wine, we'll throw the wine, grab the baby, and run." And just as he's about to, do that, he sees the Pouff kind of step in front, and so he steps in front. And the Pouff shoots out its thing and hits adult Jack right in the chest, to which he falls down. But it doesn't go all the way through. It doesn't kill him. And he was like, ah. And so just as that happens, Sue, jumps in and just chops the fucking tendril thing right off.
Just
hacking away at it. And the Pouff dies. It deflates and dies at that moment. And we realize that what stopped him was his cell phone. It couldn't get through the cell phone.
Like, no fucking way. It just happened to be like in his shirt pocket because he had the baby Bjorn. So we don't see that. We just see the tentacle thing hitting that. And there's this adorable moment where she's like, you stepped in front of the Pouff to shield me. And he's like, you just straight up like brutally murdered that Pouff to save me. She's like, yeah, I didn't like that.
I don't want to kill anything, but I
don't enjoy killing things. I don't want to do that again.
Which is great. So they get little Jack, right? And they're like, oh, okay, like, all of a sudden they're in the woods and their phones activate. And they're like, oh my God, like we have service. What is going on? They look and they're like, she's like, check, Twitter, check Facebook, check all these things. And they just see that it's just chaos everywhere. Like things aren't getting better. Like it's just madness everywhere. And at this moment, they see like a little towering, like thing, like a little glass like sculpture, and she's like, was that always there? Like, what is this? And so they walk up to it, and she's like, she's like, I can't touch it, like it's got like a force field around it, and she can only get within an inch or so. And as they're standing near it, it encases them, and now they're in this bubble, this like glass like bubble. And finally they get a hold of somebody, or they attempt to call 911, which of course is like no, but leave a message. And they're like, we're just north of this place, like we're just north of Pine Bush, and like we're in this thing, we're stuck. And then the thing starts going up in the air, and they're like, and we're going in the air, I don't know what's happening. We're going up. And so they get all the way up into space, and as they started getting up, they realize they're running out of air, and it starts sending oxygen to them. And they're like, what is happening? And it shoots up into space, and now they're up in space, and they look around, and there's tons of other of these eggs floating up from Earth. And that's the end of the movie. It ends at that exact moment.
Yes. So I love this for a couple of reasons. One, at the very beginning, it tells us I don't even know if it says the year, but it starts with a title card. This is the year that humans lost the planet, or something to that effect.
The year humans lost Earth. Yep.
And then like this ending, like we have no idea what happens to them. Like, were the Pouffes there like to save humanity? Were they there to like save some people but not all? Were they there to just get rid of humanity, and like everyone who's in one of those capsules just eventually like rots and dies? And we have no idea. That's just it.
That's it. Yeah.
And I kind of love the ambiguity of that. Like, you can make whatever ending you want from this.
Yeah, I think what was really great is the writers went on record as saying that like that was the point, like they wanted you to not know, because they felt like that would be the most realistic alien invasion scenario. Is that they said that like the biggest complaint about alien invasions, Independence Day and stuff like that, is that like one really smart dude just like all of a sudden figures it out completely for whatever reason, whereas the president like psychically connects with one and was like, oh, they're here to terraform and to, because they love toxic bullshit or whatever, and the other one's like, oh, this is how their systems work. And the writers were like, no, what's going to happen is aliens are going to come down, they're going to fuck shit up, and we're not going to know why, and we're either going to win the day by chance, or we're just going to fucking die, and no one will know why. Like, that's all there is to it. Like, you're not going to know why because you're not going to speak their language or anything. You're just going to fucking die or win it, period. And then be like, what the fuck happened? I don't know. I still don't know. What was the point of this?
So
and I think that's great. And it works for this. Would it work for like an Independence Day? No. I mean, no. It kind of worked with like the Skyline movie series. They never really tell you why. We just know that aliens invaded, but
you got a big epic action blockbuster movie, like there has to be like a heroic moment. There has to be like, we won't go quietly into the night sort of speech. There has to be the big conclusion like that. You know what? Those movies work for a reason, but I love this movie for for not doing that.
Oh, 100%. This movie is better for that, is better because of that. So should you watch this movie? Absolutely, hands down. There is no world where I would not recommend this movie ever. It's just so good.
I've seen it twice and would watch it again.
Oh, totally. I would totally watch it again. Yeah. So Save Yourselves, playing now, available on Hulu. It is a rentable movie otherwise, so if you do not have Hulu and you would like, it is totally worth the money to rent or buy. I would recommend buying this movie like unwatched. If you at all, like, as an example, if you watched Scare Me, or you watched our review on Scare Me and you're like, fuck yeah, I love movies like that, buy this movie, sight unseen. Like, you will absolutely fucking love this movie. Like, it will be a movie you recommend to friends all the time, as we are currently doing. Yeah. So we've got a really cool month coming up, and now we're gonna do one of those things. We've kind of done this before, but we're actually going to cover a movie this month that you likely have heard of. I would say like 99% chance that you have in fact heard of this movie, and an even greater chance that you've probably seen this movie. But we're going to cover the movie Mars Attacks.
Yes.
That's right, the Michael J. Fox, Jack Nicholson film. Lisa Marie Presley, like the whole spiel. We are going to cover that movie. Mainly because, one, it's an alien invasion film and probably one of the most famous. That's not like Independence Day. But two, Caleb has never seen it.
This guy.
Yeah. So obviously he's heard of it. He just has never seen it.
Yeah. And no promises yet, but we may have a special guest for that episode.
We're going to do what we can. But yeah, so join us for this week. We got a lot of really cool movies planned. I'm very excited for this. And of course, Caleb, if they wanted to see what movies were coming up this month, what?
Well, what? The easiest way that I would recommend would be to visit thenahoit.com. That's THEHOIT.com.
You don't say.
I do say. Our schedule of upcoming episodes with links to trailers, as well as where, if at all, you can find these movies available streaming. And of course, as Michael mentioned earlier, we love to hear from you of movies that you want to see us talk about. And we've got a contact form on there that you can fill out and shoot us a little electronic mail message that we will read and respond to. And if you pick a movie, we will almost certainly watch it.
Yeah, 100%. If we haven't already covered it, I mean, we've been doing this for over 3 years now. But if we haven't, and every week, mind you, for over 3 years, we have been doing this podcast and a brand new episode every single week.
Fucking wild.
Sometimes 2 a week. We've done that a couple of times. So yeah, we will totally. Yeah, if we haven't covered it before, odds are we will cover your suggestion. Yeah. So other than that, all the things that were mentioned of how to get a hold of us, and you know what? Thanks a lot for watching and listening. We super appreciate it, and we will see you on the next one.
Yeah.